Hi.
Hello. So homophobia is a rather misleading term. Technically phobia would mean fear, but it's not really used in that context. It's more used for people who don't accept homosexuals and other queer people. So homophobia, violence, homelessness, kids getting kicked out, kids getting beat up at school, that would all fall under homophobia, even though it's not necessarily directly fear as people would think of it.
Yeah, it's just a strange term.
And it also can be more well hidden. There are a lot of people who are like, oh, I totally accept gay people, but I don't think you should be able to get married. That's still homophobia, even though it's said with a smile on their face.
Yeah.
And that's not accepting gay people if you think that they don't deserve rights. It's not acceptance. You're getting mixed up, dude. Your sexual orientation has to do with who you are sexually attracted to. Whether you are sexually attracted to the same sex, different sex, multiple sexes and genders, and it's all about sexual attraction. It is not about behavior, which is what a lot of people seem to think it's about.
So, if a bi girl decides to settle down with a guy, that doesn't mean that she's straight. That means that she's still bi. She just decided to settle down with a guy.
Yeah.
It's not some kind of choice that you can make. It's who you're attracted to.
Yeah, there's a lot of identity policing that goes along, and it goes a lot from straight people, but it also comes from people within the community, and it can be really harmful. So the illusion, like the stereotype that bi girls are really just straight girls who like want to experiment and have fun, like that is a very harmful stereotype. And so it's really important to separate from sexual attraction and sexual behavior. Like for instance, an asexual person who has sex with somebody is still asexual. Orientation and behavior are completely different. Orientation is not choice.
Right.
So the most popular acronym that's being used right now for queer folks is LGBT.
And that doesn't include everything, because there's a lot.
In fact, it doesn't include most things. It includes a very narrow view of sexuality. It includes lesbian, gay, bisexual, that's all there is. There's much more than that. There's pansexual, omnisexual, there's asexual. There's a ton of different sexualities and fluidity between them, and the LGBT acronym is really just a simplistic way of looking at it.
Yeah, and people do use it to simplify matters, because when things get complicated, people have to think, which is bad.
Yeah, and so because of that, there's a lot of different acronyms going around and a lot of different terms. So queer is used as an umbrella term a lot now, and GSM, gender and sexual minority, is also used, although that one can get a little muddled because kinky people have decided that kink is a sexuality, which it's not. And also many people use different acronyms. There's LGBTQ, LGBTQIA, LGBTQIAA, there's a lot of them.
You can add anything you want after it if you want it to stand for something. That's okay.
Yeah, and it gets,
people probably won't remember.
And it gets a little muddled. So some people have just said screw it and started calling it the alphabet community, so that they don't have to go into all the different acronyms and still end up leaving somebody out. They're just like, alphabet community, you're all included.
So, queer people lots of times have been sexualized and fetishized in society, pretty much. It's all about things like viewing lesbians as something for straight guys to drool over, or like viewing gay guys as being just like these awesome friends and just like stuff like that.
Who will give you all this fashion advice and be
who will
totally
pretty much be your
sassy
girlfriends. And it's ridiculous, and it's not a compliment, and it's offensive.
Yeah, and in the end, the fetishization of queer people is all about putting queer issues in terms of what queer people can offer to straight people. And if you don't understand why that's problematic, I can't really help you. it's super, super problematic to only look at queer issues in terms of, well, what can you do for me? What can you do for straight people over here in order to earn your rights?
Yeah, straight people don't have to like gain out of everything. It's okay to earn rights because you deserve them.
Yeah, so stop trying to look for a gay best friend to be your girlfriend, and stop viewing lesbians as something for your visual pleasure. Like, you're taking an orientation that essentially is not about men and making it all about men. I don't understand this.
Male power.
So we talked about the queer movement a tiny bit in our Heterosexism video, but I'm going to talk about it a bit more in detail here. The queer movement is not the best.
Yeah, they can be exclusivist sometimes, which is not really beneficial.
Extremely exclusive. Pretty much the queer movement primarily focuses on white, cis, gay men, and every once in a while, white, cis, lesbians. And then all the other ones are just sort of, side note.
Oh yeah, complicate matters, so.
Oh yeah, those people exist too, but focus over here. And like, the queer movement is very ally-friendly to a fault. Like, they will pick issues that allies can get behind without really actually doing anything to change things. Like, there's a reason why gay marriage, which is a term that needs to die, was chosen as like the end-all be-all issue of queer issues, and it's like, so we're going to focus on getting married, which, I mean, that's important. I'm not trying to minimize that, but there's a reason why that's being focused on over the incredible rates of violence and homicide and homelessness. Like, there are so many issues that really need to be addressed, but addressing them would get a bit complicated and would require them to actually anger people.
And also, they're looking a lot at their image, so they want to look good, so they're going to pick pleasant things to talk about.
Exactly. Like, the queer movement is very focused on keeping allies comfortable, which, if they're not comfortable talking about serious issues, they're not really allies.
Yeah, we shouldn't have to, like, accommodate the issues to the allies.
Yeah. Also, the queer movement is rather racist. Very racist. Not only is it exclusionary to racial minorities, but racial minorities are fetishized in queer communities just as they are in straight communities. Like, black men are chased for their huge dicks, and like all those things that show up in straight communities show up just as much in queer communities, but it's a lot more minimized because they're queer, so they're oppressed, so they see no problem with then doing these things because they've suffered too. So it's a real problem, and there's a lot of queer movements that are doing great things, but the mainstream queer movement is not your friend. So now the positive corner. There's a few things going on in the queer movement that are fantastic, and Doma got shot down, and everybody's very excited about that. But people have been celebrating Doma getting shot down and ignoring the Voters' Rights Act being gutted, so I don't want to focus on Doma. I want to focus on something that seems like less of a big deal, but is a pretty big deal. And that is Raven from That's So Raven coming out and officially identifying as a queer person. And so you guys know that representation is so important. And so having someone that was a big part of many people's childhood come out as a queer person and saying that she loves that she may be able to get married now and is so happy, that's a big deal. And of course it's got all the homophobes coming out saying their childhood is ruined, but
And I like it that she didn't make it into like a big issue or into a big political statement. She just made it as in something that she's talking about herself, and she was talking about herself because it's a normal thing. And yeah, I like how she didn't make it into some like giant political statement.
Yeah, and a lot of people are really excited to know that they have someone who is so big that is dealing with the same things that they are. So yeah, join us next week.
See ya.